Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We do a couple of webinars a month, and some of them are overviews of ClubExpress for those people that are new to ClubExpress or evaluating ClubExpress as an association management solution. And some of them are deep dives into particular modules, whether it be the documents module or emailing or whatever. And today is one of those. And sometimes they are version announcements. We roll up a bunch of features and say, here's some of the new things that are either here or are coming. And Samantha has been doing a bunch of role-based webinars, say ClubExpress for webmasters or ClubExpress for treasurers or ClubExpress for member directors, where we go over a bunch of the tools that would be used by people in a particular role. Well, before we get into today's webinar, let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping. All the phones and microphones are muted, so any questions should be entered into the chat window. And we will revisit the chat window at the end to see if there are any questions that were not answered during the demonstration. And this is particularly useful for those that are watching the recording of this webinar. And all of our webinars are available on the ClubExpress website. So if you go to clubexpress.com and click on the Cool Stuff link, then on the left-hand side, click on webinars, you will see the upcoming webinar schedule and also the list of recorded webinars. Or if you want to look at our tutorials, one way of doing it is to click on the video tutorials tab right above the webinars tab, and this will give you a list of recent tutorials. All of our recordings are actually housed on YouTube. So if you're watching it on YouTube, you can click on the subscribe button and optionally on the notify icon so that you can be notified when new content is made available. And finally, if you're using ClubExpress, and particularly if ClubExpress is working very well for your organization, we would appreciate it if you would go to clubexpress.com/reviews and click on one of these sites and leave a review so other people can have the benefit of your experience. Today, Samantha and I are going to be talking about some tips for using the Page Builder. The Page Builder is a fairly new tool. It replaces the way custom pages and the home page have been built for years. It provides a lot of new functionality and simplicity. And today we're going to be looking at some of the tools and give you some tips and things to look out for when you're using the tools. And we'll be looking at a new feature that was implemented a couple of weeks ago called copy and paste. The Page Builder itself really falls into two categories. You've got the Page Builder, which is the user interface where you create content. It determines what the users can see, who can see it, and when they can see it. And then several months ago, when we introduced the Page Builder, we introduced a versioning system. It's a way to track and modify versions of the pages, or you could create temporary versions and edit them later. Very, very powerful feature and very welcome in any sort of content authoring system. So we're going to go through a bunch of things, and so I just want to touch on them here. We're going to look at the page managers. There's a little difference between managing the home page versus managing custom pages. The home page goes directly into versions because there's only one home page. So what you're going to look at is what version you've got. We'll talk about deleting versions, and then we'll go into the custom page manager, and we'll look at things like search results and viewing a page and copying a page, and a new feature that lets you schedule a page for deletion. It doesn't actually immediately delete it. And then we'll go into the versions manager, and we'll talk about when new versions are created and looking at the status of versions. I'll show you how you can configure a version title, when you would want to schedule a version for deletion, and the difference between previewing a page and viewing a page. Then within the Page Builder itself, we'll look at the menus for saving, activating, and previewing. We'll look at a couple of the row tools for inserting, moving, and deleting rows. We'll talk about row visibility, both the current and future visibility. And we'll talk about what you can do with styles, where you can override the default styles for rows. And I'll talk a little bit about process. And this is a wonderful line that says, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. So I am a big fan of save early, save often. In our case is keep saving, which each time it makes a new version, so that if you mess something up, and your browser closes or something like that, you have something to go back to. There's a little gotcha when you're in the page builder itself. If you click on something that takes you out of the page and you come back, you say, oh my goodness, the changes I made that haven't been saved, they're gone. But turns out there's a way to get them back. Then we'll talk about the cell tools in the page builder, general cell tools, how to copy and paste within and between pages, and how to change an element type, talk about styles. And then we'll go into widget options and editing, and we'll talk about different kinds of widgets, like what you can do with text and polls and submenus, the various ways you can use HTML. We'll talk about the Accordion widget. And then Samantha's going to talk about widgets that you can manually refresh, those that you can select categories, and she'll talk a little bit about images. So we actually have a lot to cover. We are already logged into one of our demo sites. This is Martin Smith, and Martin Smith is an administrator on the site. So if I go to the control panel, I want to show you one of the differences. If we go to the website tab, if I go to custom pages, we get search results here. These are the pages themselves. And so you see we have all these different options here. And one of the options here is to view the main version of the page. And we'll talk about main versions in a minute. However, if I go back to the control panel and I go to the home page, we don't get put into a home page manager screen. We get put into a home page versions manager because there is one and only one home page. So you're not selecting from different home pages, but you can select from the different versions that you have saved. So in this particular case, there are two active versions. One is the main homepage, which is what's going to be displayed on all computers and all mobile devices, unless you have also specified a mobile homepage. So the difference between a main homepage might be this one here, but if I go back and I look at the mobile homepage, it says, this one says demonstrates a homepage that only displays on mobile devices. So this is a subset of the other page. And we're not going to talk about that too much. We have another one about the page builder and versions and such, because today I really want to focus on the widgets. But I want to let you know that any page, even the home page, can have a mobile version and a main version. They're all mobile responsive, meaning they will reformat and do whatever they need to do to display properly on a mobile device. But sometimes you want to have different content when viewed on a mobile device. Maybe you want a smaller subset of content or things like that. So that's where you would actually use these icons here to activate for mobile or activate for desktop. So I'm not going to pay any attention at the moment to the home page versions. I want to go back to the custom pages because now we do things at a page level. The edit icon lets you edit what's referred to as the main version. And that's just a quick way of getting into whatever is the main active version. You could tell what is the main active version by clicking on the versions icon. And the versions icon shows you what is active and what it also describes what is active for main or mobile. And you'll notice that these all have different titles. And that's because one of the things you can do, and what you probably should do, is go into the configure icon, the wrench icon, and name your versions. Once they're created, name your versions with a descriptive title. So you can say, oh, this was the one that was approved by the executive board, or this was approved by the marketing committee, or whatever. And so that way you could have, say, a version here that's got an annual event. And you call this is our spring conference version, so that next time it runs around, you can just go and make the spring conference version active. You can activate it for main by clicking on these green icons here. The other thing is, if you're back at the page level, we're in the custom page manager. We're not in the version manager. So this is showing all the pages that match our search criteria. If I click on the delete icon, it says, would you want to flag this page to be deleted in 30 days? So if I say OK, the delete icon goes away and the trash can icon with a undelete shows up, because it shows here that this is scheduled to be deleted in 30 days from today. And this will delete all versions of this page. And it used to be active, and so it's no longer active. As soon as I schedule it for deletion, it is no longer available to anybody, and it will physically be removed 30 days from now. But I'm going to undelete it. And now I would have to go back, because it's no longer active. I would come over here and make it active again. So just because you undelete it doesn't mean that it's now available to people. You have to say, I want to activate it again. So now this is available to the people that you said it's available to, and the people you say it's available to is also here, any website visitor, members only, or admins only. The other thing here, you can copy a page, which is very useful. Say we have this thing called the custom page demo. And if I click on view, in the same tab, it's going to show me what this page looks like. And if I go back a page, if I want to copy that, you click on copy and you give it a new name. I'll just call this 1. And down here it says, which page version do you want to copy from? So I'm making a copy of this custom page demo, and maybe I want the most active version, or maybe I just want to copy the one that was approved by the executive board. When you click on this, and you can optionally click on which mobile version, so it could copy both. And if I click on this to save it, now I've got a custom page demo 1. And if I look at the versions, it's got the version that was called approved by the executive board. I can come over here, new version for approval. And so this is really useful to be able to make a copy of an existing document and decide which version you're making a copy from. So when you view a page, you'll notice that the tooltip says view main version, just as this one goes edit main version. So that's a shortcut to me coming in here and clicking on the edit of the main version. I tend generally not to click on this, although it's handy. I usually want to decide which version I want to edit. It's not always going to be the active version. So, for example, on this page here, we have a page builder tips demo. And if I click on it, it's going to go into edit the active version. If I click on this, it's going to view, and it's viewing on the same browser tab. And this is just a regular view. So this is the way your visitors and such, this is the way it normally displays. It's a little different when we get into versions. So if I come over here and instead of just editing the active version, the main version, if I click here into versions, you'll see that I made a couple of different versions here. I've got the one that is actually active, but I also did just a couple of saves in there. And so I've got one version that Samantha is likely to use during her portion of the demo, and I've got one version that I'm going to use. So instead of me editing the active version, I'm going to edit my version. And again, here I just went and changed the name. So you'll see that we have version 1, because I actually copied this from another document, one that we used in another webinar. And the reason I'm using this is that it demonstrates virtually every kind of widget. And I made a copy. I'm just calling that my hold copy so that nobody messes it up. And we made another copy for Samantha, another copy for me, and then made one more copy, which is live. The difference between me viewing that page and viewing it here, this in the version manager, the tooltip doesn't say view main, it says preview. So if I preview here, it opens and shows me the page, but we've got this header on top that says, how do you want to preview this? It's highlighting a computer, but I could preview it the way the public would see it, the way a member would see it, or the way administrators would see it. So if you've got certain rows that are only available to the public or rows that are only available to the members, they would show up in this preview. And if you click on the different devices here, say a phone, this will show you what it looks like if it was on a phone. So it shows you how the rows will wrap around and reformat, and what it looks like on a tablet and things like that. So this is the preview as opposed to the view from the page manager. In the versions manager, you get preview. You also get the same preview when you're in the page builder. Same here with the delete. If you click on delete, it will schedule an item for deletion. So if it says, if I click on that, do I want to delete this in 30 days? And now it shows that that one is scheduled for deletion in 30 days. And the version status will either say active, one of the main versions, either the main custom page or the main mobile custom page. And if it's just a regular version, it just gets version. And if it's scheduled for the deletion, it's flagged as deleted. So if I go into the page builder for edit version, you see that I've got a bunch of rows here. In fact, I'll just zoom out a little bit. You can see there's a whole bunch of rows here, and they demonstrate all these different widget types. So let me just come back over here. At the top of the screen here, at any point, you can save a new version and continue, and that will make a new version in the version manager. You can do a save new version and exit, which says, oh, whatever the current state is, I want to just save it and I'm done. But it doesn't make it active. It just means I'm finished working on this version. And what you can do here is you can say save, make active, and exit. Saves it, makes a new version, and replaces whatever was the active version. It makes this one the active version. Here you can preview this, which is the same as the preview on the version that we just showed, except the only difference is this time it opens in a new tab. So it doesn't leave the original tab. So you can see that here, it opens in a new tab. So you can preview it and see what your changes look like. You can also maximize, and you can cancel. Cancel just throws away all of your edits and you're back to your last saved version. I am a save early, save often kind of content creator, whether it be with PowerPoint decks or tutorials that I do. I always want to be able to go back. And my approach is that I want to save every time, so that I say, if my computer burst into flames now, what am I willing to lose? When you want to place a row, you click on row templates, you figure out what kind of row you want, you just drag it into the builder here. It gives you these two cells, and you can then put widgets into the cells. If you want to get rid of a row, you click on the row over here, and you'll get row tools. So I can delete this row. And it'll make sure that I confirm it, saying the contents will be lost. So that's just how to delete a row. If I want to duplicate a row, I click on the row here, and now it's saying, do I want to move this one up or down? Do I want to copy the row? If I want to make a copy, which is just duplicating it, it's not like copying to the clipboard. If I choose copy the row, you see now we have two copies of the row. If I click on this one here, I can delete the row and confirm it. You can move rows around by grabbing the little handle here and just dragging up and down. Or if you click on a row, since this is the one on the top, it says move down only. If I click on this second row, and you'll see that the whole row gets highlighted in blue here, I could move up. So there's a couple of different ways of moving them around. The other thing, as long as we're here, is to look at the row visibility. And the row visibility, you can tell by the icons here. So we have, this says current visibility is public and members, which means everyone. So if I click on this and I decided that I only wanted the public to see it, meaning if you're logged in, you don't get to see it, because it might be something like all the reasons you should join our club. Well, if you have already joined, you don't need to see that. So you can have it public only, and you see it changes the icon to a single person. Members only, it's showing a person with a lock, meaning it's a secure page. You have to log in. Everyone, you get the 2. And hidden means nobody gets to see it. Only administrators get to see it. So here's where you could decide who gets to see them. And you get to decide when the row is visible. Future visibility, it says, when does this become available? So right now, there's no setting at this point. But if I pick a particular date, if I want to make it available on Monday at a particular time, say at 11 a.m., I can say, now this row will be available to everyone or available to the public, or maybe it's currently available and I want to hide it. At that point, this thing will no longer be available. So this has got to do with future visibility or future invisibility, you could say. So that's a really useful thing. And then there's something else that people don't tend to look at when we look at the rows. So these are actions you can take on the rows. So there's a tab here for styles. And what might you want to do with styles? And this is styles for this row and only for this row. So I could say that I want this row to have a background color. I want the background color. I click over here to select the blue part of the spectrum, and then I can come over here and select, say, a light blue. And if I say select color, so now the background of the entire row is purple. Unless there is something within the row, in this case, by the way, you can collapse these things here by clicking on the little double arrow, unless there's something, in this case in HTML, that is specifying the colors of certain items in the row. We'll come back to styles in a moment. But to get to style, just click on the row. You can click on the little handle here. You can click anywhere in the row. If you click on the row and it brings you to the cell, just click again on the heading here, and you'll get here. And so you have style. This is pretty much all I wanted to show from the row tools aspect. If I click on a cell, now I've got the cell tools. And this one here is an advanced editor. We'll get to that in a moment, but I want to show you that we have the style also for this and only this cell. So if I change the background color here to yellow and I select color, you will see now that although the row has a background that is purple, this cell overrides that. So the closer you are to content, that's the way cascading style sheets work. The closer a style is to the actual content, if there was something in this advanced editor that I changed the background color, it would override the cell's style sheet. So this is very useful. Now, one thing that is important to note is that certain things, when you click on them, will take you places. For example, if I come down to this submenu, if I click in this little white area here, this will bring me to the cell tools. But if I clicked on an item in here, it actually brings me to the page because it is a live link. So I have now left the editor. And we say, oh, I didn't mean to do that. And when I come back and I scroll all the way up, the changes that we made, which we had not saved, are gone. Well, after you take a deep breath, what's really useful to know is if you simply refresh the page, your changes are there. So behind the scenes, the page builder is actually creating temporary versions for you. The first time this happens and you click on something that navigates you away from your page builder and you go, oh no, I should have saved before I clicked on that. Well, you can come back here and just refresh the page. That is a very handy thing to know. It's not at all obvious. So now at this point, I might click on Save New Version and Exit, or Save New Version and Continue, because I'm saying if something happens and I close this window inadvertently, I really want to have a new version. So if I save a new version and continue, this will go into the version manager. I'm now version number 6, I guess. And that's an important thing to know. So let's look at a couple of the cell tools.
Hey, Alan, while
Yes.
you're looking at the text cells that you have, so one of them is a formatted text cell and the other uses the advanced text editor. So there are 3 text editors. And one of the questions was, what are the differences and when should you be using them?
A fine question. We'll get to that in about 2 minutes, because if I come over here, you will see that we just messed with the editing and style. And the next thing we're going to do is the options for the individual widgets, which we're going to go through very quickly. So there are 3 different kinds of text widgets. So if I insert a row here, and I say I want to put in a text widget, it says this is the placeholder. And it gives me the choice. Do I want to insert plain text or formatted text or advanced text? Whenever you do one of these, it will give you the option of going more advanced. So this one here is plain text. So if I go here, it'll let me do plain text, formatted text, or advanced text. If I click on this one here, I've already gone to formatted text, so I can't go back to plain text. And this one here is advanced, so I can't go back to either of the other 2. So plain text, if I go in here, it's simply a box that just lets me put in text, no formatting, anything like that. If I click on formatted text, I can either stay with formatted text or go into the advanced editor. We'll go into formatted text. Formatted text is a simplified editor. So it lets you do certain formatting things like changing background color, change here and change the background, and we can insert pictures. And if I show the files, I could insert pictures. I could do whatever I want. These are very simplified. This is a subset of what's available in the advanced editor. And this will do most of what people need it to do. You can define links like you can in the advanced editor, or like you can with the link widget, and you can put in emojis and things like that. So this is where you'll do a lot of your editing. The advanced editor gives you a lot of tools, including, if you click over here on the wrench, it gives you a whole other set of tools here. And here's where you can go into design mode, which is a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. We've got HTML, which will show you the actual HTML underneath it. And then you can do a preview, which just lets you see what it would look like. Very similar to design, but there may be some differences. Keep in mind that HTML here could be useful. Like if you have a YouTube video and you've got some embed code that's in here, and now you want to duplicate a row and point it at another video, you don't have to insert the video. You can just go into the HTML and change the ID of the video in the embed code. So it's really handy here. There are a couple of places where you can enter HTML. The advanced content editor is one of them. And speaking of HTML, the other places where you can edit HTML is in media embed code. Now, so I'm going to click on the white area here because I don't want to actually start the video. So this one here was the embed code that was copied from YouTube, and this is the ID of that video. So if I had that in the advanced editor, I could just copy this and just plug it into the advanced editor. So you can enter HTML there, or you can scroll down here, come down to, I think I've got one here that's HTML widget. If I click on this and I insert or edit HTML, this brings up a dedicated HTML editor, which does some really nice things. You've got line numbers here, which helps with your editing. You've got open and close brackets. So when you click on a bracket, it shows you, it highlights the closing bracket. It does text beautification here with colors and things like that. So this is really nice. So you can enter HTML into the HTML widget, or into the advanced editor or into the media widget. Another widget that is useful, polls. So say you've created a poll. You can actually assign a poll widget. And by the way, the way you put widgets in is if you have a place that you want to place a widget, you can select the type of widget you want, drag it into the cell. If it's an empty cell, it just takes it. If there's something in there, says, are you sure you want to replace it? So we're going to assume that we've already placed the right ones into each cell. So if I click on here, and I would say insert or edit the poll. So here's where I could select from the poll or create a new poll, or I can edit the poll itself. So once you've created a poll, probably you want people to vote on it. And we've got a YouTube video on how to use polls. Submenus, as I showed you before, is the same kind of menu that would be a drop-down menu, maybe a members menu or whatever. So these are live links. And so again, if you want to edit this, don't click on the links. Click on the little border around the link. And here's where you could pick the menus, how wide you want to make it. If you made changes, you can refresh it and then apply changes. And Samantha will talk a little bit more about refreshing. The other one that is interesting that people don't use that often is the Accordion widget. And so the Accordion widget is really useful. And if you click on it, here's where you can add panels. And each panel is each one of these, which is like a drop down. So this is the first panel. And here's the contents for the first panel. And we can bring it up or down, expand it. Here's the second panel. So it's got more detailed content. And this one is the third panel. So you can leave them all open or you can close them. And this is a very good way of presenting a lot of information in a little bit of space. But if I want to create a fourth panel, I would come over here into the cell and say add panel. And so panel number 4 comes in. You can't rearrange the panels, so you create them in order. And so I'm going to configure the options for this panel. So we're going to call this tips page builder. Come on. And here I can decide, do I want this to be the full width? In this case, I'm going to say no. I only want it to be, say, 300 pixels wide. And here's where you decide what kind of arrows you give it. So if I make this plus minus white, it'll come up. You can decide whether or not you want borders. What color do I want the background to be? So let's make this one a light green. And I select the color. You have a little title bar preview here. You can decide the font size and all of that. And if I save this and I apply changes, now you'll see that this one I said it's only 300 pixels wide. Normally you would let it go the whole width here, but there may be some reason why you want to do it this way. Then for this, you would go and edit the content. And I would say, these are tips. And maybe stick in a little picture. Picture of Jenny. Select this, save it, apply changes. And so now when I expand this, we've got that content. So the Accordion widget, I think, is an underused tool, but it's a really nice user interface because you can make these any way you want. You can reconfigure them. You say, I really want this to be 100% wide, and apply the changes. And so now we get the 100% wide. You can delete it, which will just delete this panel and its content. Now, before we go on to a couple more types of widgets, I want to show you about copying content. So let's assume that we've got this one here, floated image with text. If I click on this and we're looking floated image with text, we have this new choice here that says copy. So if I copy this, it doesn't do anything. There's no UI change here. It copies it. And now if I come over here and I say, put in a new row, let me drag in a 30% row. I can come over here and if I click on the widget, oh, there's no content here. If I click on the widget here, a new item gets into the widget tools called paste. And if I drag this in, it actually will take that content and stick it in this cell. Absolutely fantastic for those of us that are going to be making multiple versions of things. Because you could have a hidden row that's got 3 different versions of a particular widget. Early bird registration version of this widget, and one that highlights the speakers at your event or whatever. And then you can just make this one hidden. And then just when it's time to move the correct widget into the active, you just copy it and move it someplace else. Now, I can also, because this is now in this page builder clipboard, I can also go to another page, even in another copy of a browser, but I'll just come over here. I will go to custom pages. Let's go to a webinar page demo. And if I just come over here, well, actually, let me move this a little wider so I can see the tools. If I go to rows here, add a row here, I can, from the widgets, I can paste from here. Or if the widget already has content, well, not a blank widget, you can also drag from the widget's paste, but there's also a paste here because now it knows what kind it is. So if I click on this and then choose paste, it'll just replace that placeholder text with it. So this is great to be able to copy within a page, copy between pages, or copy between versions of pages. So you might say, oh, I like that older version of the widget that I had before we took out some content. Let me open up the older version, copy that widget to the page builder clipboard, go to your new version of the page, and paste it. So I'm going to stop my sharing. Let's turn it over to Samantha, and you will be talking about refreshing widgets and such.
Yes. So I'm going to give you some tips on refreshing widgets, which might save you a call or two to the support team. Not that I'm sure you don't enjoy speaking with them. We'll talk about some of the things that you can do with widgets as far as categories. So we all know and love categories within ClubExpress. You see them all the time. And a lot of the widgets will allow you to filter what you see in the widget based on some of the categories that you set up within the modules. And then we'll also talk about some tips on images and web graphics. And we'll actually reiterate some of the things that we talked about last week in our webinar that was for webmasters. If you haven't had a chance to take a peek at that, check out our YouTube channel for all things webmaster related to help you with your ClubExpress website. So I am signed in to our demo site as Martin Smith, and I'm visiting the same page that Alan was on. So Alan had his own version that he was working with, and I have my own, which of course is a really great way to use our versioning system. So I have mine labeled with my name, and I am going to pop in and take a look at some of the widgets that we have there. So the first thing to talk about is refreshing your widgets. If you've ever been in a situation where you have posted events on your calendar, you pop over to a custom page or to your home page, and you're just not seeing those events come through, you might be tempted to call support. Before you do that, there might be a very quick fix that you can use to refresh that widget on your end. So I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only am I going to refresh a widget, but I'm also going to change the categories of things that are displayed in that widget. So the first thing that I'm going to do is pop into my upcoming events widget, select that cell. We can see, of course, it outlines in blue to note that I've selected it. And I get the same widget tools that I would have seen when I added the widget in the first place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select some different categories. So originally the widget's displaying all categories of events, but maybe I have custom pages that are set up for a specific committee, and I only want that widget to display committee meetings. Or I have a page that's visible to the public, and I want all of my public or non-member events to display in that widget. And I don't want my non-members or the general public to see all of the member-only events or those committee meetings. So for this, I'm actually going to just select our flying events and only show that category.
By the way, Samantha, regardless of whether or not you want to show them, the security, even if you said that this thing was available to everybody, it would only show those things that people are allowed to see.
Correct.
So you can't inadvertently show events that are visible only to members. You can't inadvertently show them to the public. But here, this is the kinds of events, the categories of events that you want to limit this list to. The security is handled behind the scenes automatically.
Yes. And so going through my list of categories, these are all of the categories that I set up in events. I'm going to apply those changes. My refresh button is right next to it. Again, if you're ever confused as to why your events may not be showing in the events widget, it's just a quick visit to that refresh button to make sure that that displays for you. I'm going to apply those changes. So now I have a pared down list of events that's only showing the events related to that flying category that I selected. Now, next to that, I have an empty blogs widget. I don't have any recent blogs, as it states in very fine gray text. So if I select that, perhaps the reason is that you haven't created a blog post in quite some time. And it looks like within the last 160 days, there hasn't been a blog post. Perhaps our club president, Jenny Cho, blogs weren't on the list of things for her to care about in her presidency of the Northwest Balloon Club. So maybe we'll back this out a little bit. Let's just show our blog post for the last 365 days. I'll go ahead and apply those changes. The same way that we saw those category options with events, we can see those with blogs as well. So I can limit it to just showing one of our blogs. I'm going to include all of them, and I'll apply those changes. Now we have a list of blogs that are available to us. And of course, each of these is a live link. I'm not going to click it because I am not going to advance out of this screen. And then, of course, recent articles. Another way that you can limit items by category. You can also change the time period. So you have the ability to push back all of that time period for everything that's listed in that widget. This is the same for your events widget, for your blogs widget. You can do that with anything that has a timestamp associated with it. So I'm going to push this back out as well. I'm just going to show articles from the last year and apply those changes. Now it looks like we have a little bit more content on our site. So it gives you, a chance to display things. Even if those articles aren't super recent, it at least helps your web pages not look so empty. And of course, we always encourage you to add more content and add fresh content to your websites, because your websites are really a living, breathing entity. They like to be nurtured. So feed them with a little bit of content. So we've talked about categories within widgets, refreshing widgets, great tip to avoid a quick call to support. Let's talk about some of our images. So if I take a look at the images that we have a few different widgets that allow you to add them. We have one single image, floated image, images with captions. If you've ever played around with some of the images, you'll notice that when you select them, you see this double arrow on the bottom right-hand corner of every image. That is a really quick way for you to resize images. And as you can see, as I resize it, it moves the row beneath it up or down. Of course, if it's in a row with other content and that content is of a similar size, decreasing the size isn't going to affect the cell to the right of it. But if I make it just a little bit bigger, it's going to push everything down for me. And as I'm moving that arrow, you can see in my Cell Tools toolbar, the width and the height are changing as I am dragging this up and down. So it's a really quick way for you to adjust the size of some of your images in order for it to lay out nicely on your web page. Now, another thing that I like to point out in training, if you attended our webinar on our 10.3 version release, you know that we recently added the option to add a lot of accessibility tools to your website. If that's something that you're interested in, of course, give our team a call and they'll be happy to walk you through what that entails. But if you're just looking to maybe add a couple of things to your website currently to make it a little bit more accessible to your members, one of the easiest things to do is pay attention to alt text. What alt text is it's a label for the photo or image that's on your site that screen readers are able to access and essentially use that to describe the photo to somebody who might be visually impaired. So how that works is, let's say I have this image already in my cell. I'm going to go to Insert Change Image just so I can bring up that select image pop-up window that we're used to seeing. So this is going to show me all of my images or graphics that are saved to my site. We talked about the difference between web graphics and photos in our Webmasters webinar, but I'm just going to reiterate that. You have two spots on your website to store images. You have your web graphics in the setup section of the website tab, and you have photos in the admin section of the website tab. Web graphics are stored and saved in the exact size that you upload them. They should be reserved for things like banners or logos. Photos, on the other hand, are saved as three different versions, essentially. You get the original size that you upload, a screen size that's used when you add it to custom pages so that it fits on a great screen. And then the last size would be that thumbnail size that you would use to reference as a thumbnail. So a thumbnail would be a very small version of that photo. So just keeping in mind that the size really does matter. If you are using web graphics exclusively to upload photos to your site and to put them into custom pages, that full size might take a while to download for maybe your members who are in remote areas that have a slow internet connection, or members who are looking at your website on their mobile device. So just be sure, use photos when you can so that you're using the proper size and looking at that web page isn't a time suck for your members. So let's get back to that alt text. Whenever I select a photo, no matter which photo it is, I have the opportunity to enter alt text on the right-hand side of my pop-up window. So if I change, let's say, the alt text of the photo that's currently in that cell, and I change it to balloon in the mountains, it would help if I could spell balloon properly. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to apply that alt text to that image. You can see already that when I hover over that image, I see that alt text, balloon in the mountains. Now, what happens when a screen reader is going through the page, they'll come to the image, read off the description of the image, which is that alt text. So that way, your members who, again, might be visually impaired aren't missing out on some of the great visual content that you might be adding to your site. The last item that we'll talk about as it relates to photos would be slideshows. So slideshows are, of course, a really popular way to add some flashy content to both your homepage and any custom pages. In order to use slideshows on any page, you have to have the photo albums module activated. So just make sure that you activate that so you can create those photo albums, because the photo album is what's going to be pulled in order to display that slideshow. Now you'll see here that this particular slideshow has a lot of buttons around it. So we have the ability to go full screen with that slideshow. We can pop out the images. At the very bottom, we have the title that's associated with each one of those photos that we've uploaded. We can pause the slideshow, and we can also just show the thumbnails so that we can advance through the slides as we want. Now, if I take a look at the insert edit option for the slideshow, I, of course, can choose my photos from the photo albums that I have configured. So we'll go ahead and select one of those photo albums. And then at the bottom Originally, we were including that border, so that black border that you see around the photos, the navigation options, and all of those buttons that you see. But if you want something just a little bit cleaner, something that you might see on some of the flashier homepages of other websites, opt to show images only. So if I save that, now it's a super clean background. All I'm seeing are slideshow images, not any of the buttons. So, of course, if you're displaying a slideshow and you want your members to be able to page through on their own, if you're showing maybe photos from an event, keep those buttons in there. But if you're looking for something just a little bit more clean, like I said, to display on your homepage or any other custom page, opt to go without those buttons.
All right. Well, we have a couple of questions here. We'll let Samantha continue to share her screen. One says, are there any plans to be able to change the order of the panels in the Accordion widget? I have not heard of any such plans, but we will pass the suggestion on to the development team. And there's one that says, can you review how to insert a button link to, say, let's say a newsletter or a video on the homepage? Now, there's a couple of different ways of doing it. So the thing is that there is a link widget, which simply puts a link in a particular place. You can just drop it in any cell at the moment. So you can just drop in the link, and then you get your typical link selector, whether it be an external page where you're going to type in the URL, maybe you're going to a particular built-in module, maybe you want to show a particular custom page. So if we click on custom page, it'll say, well, what category? Samantha will pick one. And you can decide what kind of link it should be. Should it be the text? Should it be on a button? Do you want to have it as an image? So they click on the image and the image jumps to something else. There's any number of ways of doing it. So you can do it here as the link widget. You can do it in the formatted text editor and in the advanced text editor, so that you can just click here and select something, custom page, and use an image this time. And you select an image, try to get the image of Jenny maybe. And with Jenny Cho. And when you click save, now, if you click on her picture, that is a live link, will take you to that page. It says, can you change the look or color of the button? You could, in here, if you went into the style for the cell, if you know enough about HTML, you could make a button class just for this one. You can change the style of buttons, I think, in the general user interface tools. The ability to adapt style very close to the content will override any other styles. That's what cascading style sheets are all about. The question is the way we can make this page with samples of all the types of widgets available to us. In this particular case, I don't think so, because this is on one that's behind the firewall. I might be able to make one available on the Demo Club site. But one of the problems is that a lot of people go messing with it. So one of the best things to do would be to look at the page builder tutorials, where we show very often how to build all these things and how to edit them.
And of course, there's nothing stopping you from making your own sort of hodgepodge page. You don't have to make it an active page. You can just use it as a sandbox of your own to kind of play around with.
They say, here says, is a link to an information stored under events considered internal or an external link? If it's to a particular event, well, this is the upcoming events widget, but say you wanted to go to a link. So if you click on that and you want to change the link, you can select a particular future event, and that will go directly to that event. You could also do it as the page. If you just go to the event, pick up the URL and stick it in. But this is one way of you being very specific about that event, and it'll pick up the title of the event. Where can you change the name of a page, not the version? Okay, Samantha, would you just go back up to the custom page manager?
Yes, I will.
And here on the page level, you click on the wrench, the edit configuration, and here's where you change the name of a page. Question is, how do you upload a video? Well, you don't really, because although you can actually upload video files, they have to be less than 2 megabytes. It's not useful to do this. What you do is you upload to something like YouTube or Vimeo or some other media server, and then pick up the embed code from that, and then take the sharing information and put it either into the media player or into a formatted text widget or an advanced widget. And it says, it would be nice to have the format of a button be defined once and cascade to the home page, custom pages. You can do that. It says, if you go back to the control panel, the website tab, if you go into website look and feel, and you go into custom CSS, and you can change what buttons look like. I mean, you can make your own button, and this will override everything else. So this is the topmost level. Here we've got this special button here, which makes things transparent. So if you go to the home page on this site, you'll see something that's kind of cool. And I actually do mention it in, I think, our original page builder. If you go to the home page, you'll see that the board election ballot has a transparent background. And that's because in this widget, we said, use that style. Can you copy and paste to an email template? The answer at the moment is not yet, because they use 2 different editors. It says, are there plans for the page content to be shared in emails like articles, news, so that you can create it once for the page and then share it in a news email? Again, it's a different templating system, but we will pass this comment on to the team. And I think that pretty much wraps it up for questions. So we thank everybody for attending. We hope you found this useful. Maybe you picked up a couple of tips that you can use in your own work. And we hope to see you in the next webinar. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.